Thanks for joining us. You're watching Emag, your weekly news program. Here's a look at what's coming up in today's show. Help the agricultural sector be fully taken into account in its economic and industrial dimension, one of the objectives of a workshop which gathered together researchers and public authorities of the continent. The West African Research Center and the West African Research Association, the two organizations with almost the same name, decided to join hands as a result of their partnership, the creation of the Dakar American Applied Research Training Center. Today, we plunge you in the semi-final of Great Speaker, the competition which puts to the test your English and your charisma. Finally, our guest, Valentin Tapsoba, resident representative of UNHCR in West Africa. This and more coming next, but first, a workshop on an issue which is of paramount importance in Africa, agriculture. Researchers, public authorities met this week in Dakar to discuss on ways of helping the sector be fully taken into account in its economic and industrial dimension, an event initiated by the International Food Policy Research Institute.
In Africa, agriculture is an important sector, but its modernization remains a complex equation. Researchers intend to reverse the trend. They are determined to be a reflection force in decision-making with the backing of the International Food Policy Research Institute.
IFPRI, as you know, specializes in policies, and these policies provide the framework to guide many of the decisions taken by governments, farmers, and those who are training farmers as well. So policies are as important as providing the research background.
Once researchers' ideas are taken into account, public authorities will make agriculture a development tool, a flourishing sector with an undeniable added value.
The research that can increase food production, that can address the issues of land, water. So that's what we mean basically by the economic transformation.
This seminar is punctuated by a series of panels, a way for participants to reflect on the problems of agriculture in the continent.
In the reinventing of politics and citizenship, what role for social movements and progressive forces? The theme-like question featured prominently during the 4th International Conference organized by the Party of Independence and Labour in partnership with Gabriel Perry and Rosa Luxembourg Foundations. Find more.
The conference is held in a crisis context. Global capitalism is affected. The situation undermines all the society's aspects. Citizens are not spared. They had the feeling of an inefficiency of their political leadership.
There were two types of democracy that were incubating in the democracy movement: liberal democracy and social democracy. Now what we have now is that liberal democracy has become the order of the day because the Western nations, the World Bank, IMF, all supported liberal democracy, even though the social democratic variant is still also very much, especially gender movements and movement of the unemployed youth. They've been growing and making demands on the political system.
The capitalism crisis has raised awareness among civil societies. New citizenship forms are emerging, especially in Africa.
Because they think they are no more represented from their representatives. And the form of democracy is not anymore a form of democracy. And they try to reinvent forms of democracy on a social level. Say they occupy places, they make solidarity networks, and I think it is already a form of inventing new forms of democracy and not to make concepts how in the future democracy should look like. They are practicing it now in the moment.
During 3 days, participants put the focus on a guiding approach, the necessity of making citizenship a solution for economic recovery.
The West African Research Center and the West African Research Association, the two organizations with almost the same name, have decided to join hands to create the Dakar American Applied Research Training Center. The promises of the structure were inaugurated this week. Awinda reports.
This project was created by the partners of the U.S. Department of State. The creation of this center confirms the efforts of West African and American leaders.
We have fellowship programs. We provide modest fellowships to researchers here in the region and in the United States to do research in Africa. We organize conferences. I would say that our most important program is WARC, the West African Research Center, which serves as, it was originally conceived as a place that would support researchers with a place to work, a sort of home base, and a library. Well, it's grown very much over the last 20 years. So it's not only a center that has a research library, offices, internet connections, and so on, the things that are helpful to researchers.
The West African Research Association and the West African Research Center worked together to develop this important training center.
DART is the most recent program or project of WARA and WARC. And the objective of DART was slightly different than what we've done to date. I mean, most of what WARA does is supports higher education and advanced research. That's our objective. But we thought it's important to support young leaders who are applying this research. So that's where the name comes from. Dakar American Applied Research and Training Center.
The WARA and the WARC are grateful to the Africa Bureau of the U.S. Department of State for the generous support of this project. Scholarships were accorded in leadership, finance, marketing, technology, culture.
The crisis in Mali and its socio-economic consequences raise the perennial problem of refugees. To talk about the issue, our guest, Valentin Tapsoba, resident representative of UNHCR to West Africa, asks first questions: how many are there to flee their land? In what countries do they find refuge?
Right now, we have 170,000 refugees, Malian refugees, who have crossed into Burkina Faso. And in Burkina Faso, we have 49,000. In Algeria, 1,500. In Mauritania, 74,000. And in Niger, 50,000. But this is not all of them, because we have also what we call the internally displaced people. These are Malians who have fled, for example, Timbuktu, Gao, Sikasso, and Kidal, but are still in their own country. We have 300,000 of them, internally displaced people. So if you add the 175,000 refugees, you have more or less 500,000 people who have been displaced because of the civil war in Mali.
In Mali, so the figures speak for themselves, so it's a quite complicated situation. So to what extent these refugees can return home, you know?
This is an excellent question, because as you know, with UNHCR, what we are looking for also is for people to return home in dignity and safety. But before this could happen, we definitely need to have peace, definite peace for everyone, so that the refugees may make an informed decision to go back to their respective place of origin. But I hope that with the engagement of the government of Mali and all these people who are fighting and so forth, they could come together and dialogue, so that definitely we can find a durable solution for all these people who are either outside the refugees or internally displaced people. What we are doing now is to make sure that they have water, they have food, they have shelter, they have education, and also health services have been provided to them. But all of this, UNHCR is looking for money. UNHCR would like the international community, the assistance of the international community. Otherwise, we cannot do alone. And this is why we are, again, I am taking the liberty to thank the international community for being generous, giving some of our needs, the money that we need definitely to care for these people. But it is not easy, as you may know. With the financial crisis, the economic crisis, and so forth, it is very difficult to, they know we are trying to convince them, we are trying to plea for the well-being of the refugees. But as of today, we have only received 36% of the funding needs. So as you can see, we don't even have 50%. So it is very difficult, and the rainy season is coming. You have cholera, you have malaria, you have, you name it. So it is very difficult.
So what about the upcoming presidential election? How will the backing of UNHCR results in this field?
UNHCR is also ready to assist the government of Mali vis-a-vis of the election by helping them in the camps. But I want to make clear, I want to be sure that refugees who are in Mauritania, who are in Niger, and who are in Burkina Faso, the Malian government has to have a bilateral agreement, talks with these countries. And if these countries are ready to hold elections in the respective countries, then UNHCR can accompany the two countries, meaning, for example, Burkina and Mali. We can, UNHCR can have like a tripartite agreement to come up with a clear roadmap on what will be UNHCR responsibilities, what will be the government of Burkina Faso responsibility, and what will be the government of Mali responsibility, so that at the end of the day, it is up to the refugees to decide freely whether they would like to vote or they don't want to vote. We cannot force them. UNHCR, we are a humanitarian organization, but we can help conveying the message to tell them that, okay, this is a big event. If you want to take part, we will make it possible for you. But if they don't want to do that, we will not force them to do so.
Thank you for being our guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last week, our guest was the coordinator of the new tournament called Great Speaker. Today, we plunge you in the semi-final of a competition which puts to the test your English and your charisma. Aramonion reports.
At the beginning, the project gathered 8 schools and superior institutes from Dakar, ESMT, BEM, CESAG, Subdeco or ISM, to list but a few. 2 months later, it was time for the semi-finals of the Great Speaker tournament. At first, ISMT was facing BEM.
The truth is, if the United States or Iran, for example, had a nuclear weapon, and Israel didn't have it, for example, you know what would happen? They would attack Israel and destroy it completely. But now, the only reason of stability in the Middle East is both Iran and Israel having a nuclear weapon.
The nuclear weapon age, which is 100 times more powerful and dangerous than the A1, has been conceived. That means that now nuclear weapons have the power to destroy whole cities and even whole countries. That means that for the first time in history, man has acquired the technical means to destroy life on Earth. And guys, believe me, that is not a movie or a footing, that is reality.
Great debaters who seduced the jury thanks to their fluency and their master of the topic. Then it was time for CESAG to be confronted with Subdeco.
Another challenge that are really worrying me is those social media and those computers, as he said, are going to replace our teachers. Now, if ever they succeed, what about the affection between student and teacher? What about that ambition of teachers to help their students as if it were their own sons or daughters?
CESAG family is on Facebook. And I will tell you something, I know this great speaker by Facebook. How can you explain this? How about ISAC family? ISAC, how about ISAC CESAG, which is promoting young leaders all around the world? How can you tell us that social medias are not important?
After 2 harsh and highly played matches, it was time for the jury to deliberate for the first confrontation.
First match, ESMT versus BEM. ESMT scored 73.58. Ben 73.33. So the winner is ESMT.
We have won the Today contest and we feel very proud of it because the great speaker is a really big opportunity for us to improve our general knowledge and our language. And we are very happy to be on final, and we hope that many people will come to support us and we win. That thanks God will help us to win the contest.
A nice and great speech of the winner, who is quite ready to welcome her fans to the final while waiting for her opponent to be proclaimed.
Singapore scored 75.46. Cesar scored 73.
Today we won our CESAC English Cup, and that was really a great pleasure for us to participate in this competition. And the named great speaker, that was really original and very good for us because that just helps us to know much thing about English, about also general knowledge. So I will just invite you all to come to the final, which will be just the 8th of June, down Sawano, to support your team, to support Tubdeco English Club. Thank you.
The Great Speaker initiators are now ready to organize the final of their first edition on June the 8th at Théâtre National Daniel Sorano. All the public is expected for another celebration of English in Senegal.
Well, that's it for this week's program. Many thanks to the whole team who helped me prepare it. Until next week, stay tuned on RTS1.